By the shoreline of Lake Turkana in modern Kenya can be found the earliest example of monumental architecture in sub-Saharan Africa. What initially looks like an unassuming, large, ring-shaped structure reveals itself to be a site of profound significance, offering a window into the lives of the ancient people who constructed it. Roughly 5,000 years ago, soon after Nama and his tribesmen had consolidated rule of Egypt under its inaugural dynasty, the inhabitants on the banks of this lake were embarking on a more baffling endeavour, a Herculean task in its own right, of moving dozens of stones, most weighing close to a ton, over great distances, without use of any animals or apparent knowledge of the wheel, so that they may erect them over an extraordinarily large pit that they had dug. The pit in question was used to bury their dead, adorned in jewelry made from the remains of the ferocious beasts that roamed the savannas of ancient Kenya. How they did it, we are still unsure, but what we do know is that architecture of this nature wasn't native to this region, as was the case for the remains of the domesticated animals found dated to this time period. Since its discovery, the origins of both the builders and their herds have been subject of extensive speculation, with the evidence testifying that, indeed, their origins lay not in this land. So, who were these people, and from where did they come? These were the people of the early Pastoral Neolithic culture, the first pastoralists of East Africa. Through use of comparative ceramic analyses, osteological research, and, of course, ancient DNA, it has become evident that this early population of primarily goat herders had emerged from the budding cultures of the Neolithic Middle Nile. The first clue in piecing together their origins could be found in the observed elaborate mortuary traditions at Lothegam North Pillar site, the earliest of the 7 sites like this in the region, and the most significant. Mortuary expression like this is very much something associated with the cultures of the Middle Nile, otherwise referred to as Nubia, and the adjacent Eastern Desert, all along the Red Sea and spilling into the Horn. Ceramic analysis of the Indirit pottery used by the populations of Lake Turkana seem to point to similarities with pottery from the A group culture of the Middle Nile, known as the first sub-Saharan civilization, located 2,000 kilometers further north, in and around the modern Egypt-Sudan border. By proxy, there were also similarities with the contemporaneous pre-Kerma populations of Upper Nubia, who would go on to build the very first kingdom in sub-Saharan Africa. The presented analyses on their own to critics was extremely limited in their ability to firmly place the origins of the Lothegamites in the Middle Nile, and so more evidence was needed to support what was speculated by these authors. And that evidence would come in the form of ancient DNA. First, a paper concerning the DNA of the early East African pastoralists would be published in May of 2019, elucidating their ancestral composition. What would be made very evident was their origins further north, with Levantine and North African related DNA making up the majority of their genetic makeup, and with Nilotic-like ancestry modelled by Dinka populations of South Sudan, and East African forager-related ancestry modelled by a 4,500-year-old hunter-gatherer from Ethiopia, making up the rest of their composition in roughly equal proportions. This revelation provided a broad geographic area of interest for tracing the origins of the first Neolithic peoples of East Africa, considering the regions associated with Levantine, East African forager, and Nilotic-related ancestry. It was only thanks to a later published paper from December of 2022 that we would be able to, with great confidence, zero in on where exactly their origins lay. Using DNA from the hair of a 4,000-year-old man from Kedruka in the Middle Nile, a site associated with both the Kerma and pre-Kerma cultures, researchers made a striking discovery. They found that the DNA from this ancient Nubian was indistinguishable from the DNA of the early pastoralists from the previously mentioned paper from 2019. as can be made clear with this principal component analysis plot, whereby its genetic proximity to both the early and later pastoral Neolithic samples is made clear. From this, in conjunction with pertinent archaeological research, they were able to propose a compelling theory, one that would end up mirroring that suggested by the ceramic experts many years prior. Put forward was a theory of a north to south migration along the Nile being responsible for the introduction of pastoralism into this region, with references to the material and cultural continuity of the herdsmen and the Middle Nile population.